For a brief moment in the early 2000s, it felt like everything was going underground. It may have started with Medal of Honor at the turn of the century, but this trend quickly spread to both Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Need for Speed. And then, just as quickly as it started, the trend was gone, replaced by hot pursuits in the American wasteland. If you're one of those people who's nostalgic for the underground scene of 20 years ago, then you should check out Street Racer Underground from Slovakian developer Inlogic Games. Or maybe you shouldn't, because this pitiful attempt at the infinite runner genre is so simple and so repetitive that it wouldn't even pass as a mini-game from 2004, let alone a brand new standalone product. The first thing you need to know about Street Racer Underground is that there isn't a whole lot of game here. It's a street racing game without any racing and only one street. The goal is to drive as far as possible before time runs out, which also means dodging the traffic and picking up nitro. We only start with 35 seconds, but we'll extend the time by driving through the various checkpoints. And when the timer finally ticks down to 0, you'll earn a grip of cash that can be spent buying and upgrading the different cars. You know, there's a way to make the game I just described exciting and fun. But oof, it's painfully clear the developers of Street Racer Underground weren't able to crack that nut. This is a game where all we need to do is steer left and right, automatically switching between the highway's 5 lanes. We don't even have to press the gas pedal, the game is always on cruise control. All we need to do is swerve around traffic and fill up the boost gauge. Well, not especially unique for the racing genre, filling up that boost gauge is probably the most interesting thing about Street Racer Underground. You do this by performing near misses, which means steering away from the traffic at the very last second. Like I said, this isn't unique, but getting the timing down is at least something. Look, it's not much, but at least there's a learning curve, especially when the game adds more traffic. And that's where we're at when it comes to Street Racer Underground. There's so little to talk about here that I spent time explaining how to fill up the boost gauge. And it's not for a lack of effort, because I'm trying my hardest to think of something to say. I mean, I guess I could bring up that there are race events to go with the usual endless mode, but there are only 4 of them, and they last about 40 seconds. And you can easily win every one of these by simply buying a faster car. Yeah, you see my problem? This is a game defined more by what it doesn't have than anything else. For example, it doesn't have any turns. You're always driving on the straightest straight stretch you've ever seen. It also doesn't have levels, but rather one stage that repeats every single time you play. It's always the same buildings, the same cars, the same checkpoints, the same time of night, the same everything. Every single time. I spent the entire game foolishly thinking that there must be more content if I just beat these 4 races. Surely there must be more to the game than just a single stage with nothing to do, right? Nope, this one stretch of road is the entire game. Look, don't get me wrong, I realize that the infinite runner genre is known for paper-thin games. But this is on a different level. This is lacking even by those standards. It also feels ancient without simple things like an online leaderboard and optional objectives. And is it even worth mentioning that the graphics are dark and ugly? They're also repetitive, and not just because we're stuck in this one stage. The cars and buildings along the side repeat so often that you'll feel like you're stuck in a hamster wheel. These games only last a couple of minutes, so what's the excuse? Come on, the developers couldn't construct enough interesting material to fill 120 seconds? Ugh, I can't imagine anybody being satisfied with what they get in Street Racer Underground. It's hard to imagine a game coming out in 2020 with less content than Street Racer Underground. With only one boring stage, 4 races, and not even a single turn, this is one of those games you're gonna be sick of after the very first play. First of all, the gameplay is little more than swerving left and right while dodging cars, all in an attempt to go a tiny bit farther than last time. This is an ugly game that is made worse by the astonishing lack of content. Street Racer Underground tries to be one of those fun little time wasters that you can't put down, but is ultimately nothing more than a waste of time. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now here's the question I have for you. What is your least favorite racing game? I'm not even sure I'd count Street Racer Underground as a racing game, but just for the sake of this review, let's go ahead and do that. There really are so many terrible racing games, but I think I'd go with, the Kinda Races Homie Rollers on the Nintendo DS. We should probably talk about that one of these days. I think it's been forgotten, and people need to remember it. Anyway, let me see your pick in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back tomorrow with a review of When the Past Was Around. No, really, I mean it. You'll see. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.